Hello everyone, welcome to the Virtual Institute for Culture in the Digital Environment. I am Faishara Bolu, the facilitator for this course. The title of this course is Adapting the International Instruments within the Context of Cultural and Trade Agreements and Public Policies in the Digital Environment. So today we'll examine what international and cultural trade agreements are. We'll look at some definitions and some examples of the international instruments. So what are the international instruments? They are the relevant international conventions, they are the relevant resolution and circular of International Maritime Organization, the IMO. They are the relevant international testing standards that provide direction to state parties on how to meet their obligation and to develop and implement legislation. It also means documents adopted by the international bodies or fora in which both parties regulate and competent authorities at the central level participate, including as observer, and which provide requirements or related procedure, recommendations or guidance on the supply or the use of a service, such for example the authorization, the licensing, the qualification or the characteristics related to production method, presentation or the use of a product. Moving on to the varieties of international instruments, we have different varieties of the international instruments. We have the international organization, which adopts a wide variety of international instruments with external normative value. While the approach to international rulemaking varies across the international organization, and the ability to design and develop an international instrument depend on their respective mandates. The following categories of the international instruments can be identified in a broader international normative landscape. 2. Legally binding instruments that are directly binding on the contracting party, either upon signature or upon ratification, depending on the provision of the instrument. For example, we have the treaties and the convention, we have the agreement, we have the decision, another form of prospective instrument. We have non-binding instrument, which by nature or wording are not intended to be legally binding. When states transport these instruments or some of their provisions into domestic legislation or recognize them in international legally binding instruments such as the treaties, the relevant instrument or provision acquired legally binding values. Statement of intent or guidance which are aimed specifically at encouraging the certain behavior and polling experience or framing priorities and expressing committees. So here we have the varieties of the international instruments, their defining features and their benefits. One, we look at the treaties and the convention. Their defining feature is that an international agreement concluded between states in written form and governed by the international law, whether embodied in single instrument or in two or more related instruments, and whenever it is particularly designed. Subject to common definition and understanding, their provisions are legally binding, negotiated by the state directly or under supervision of the international organization. The benefit is that it generates high level of compliance, followed established processes of engagement, implementation and evaluation, and ensures significant transparency, of which it enhances its predictability of regulatory environment across borders. We also have the prescriptive international instrument, that is the decision, the resolution, and the directive. Instruments which are legally binding, provided which are adopted within the framework of the international organization through the intermediary of the governor or decision-making bodies of the IOM member states, require transposition and enforcement to key international commitment. So the benefit is that it can be tailored to local institutional context so long as regulatory objectives are acquired, drawing legitimacy associated with compliance and international public. So moving on to the examples of international instruments that we have the Charter of the United Nations in 1945. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UDHR, in 1948. We have the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Crime of Genocide, or the Genocide Convention in 1948. We have the International Convention on the Elimination of all forms of radical discrimination in 1965. We have the Committee on Eliminating of all forms of radicalism, discrimination, generally recommendation on combating racist hate speech in September 2013. We have the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights in 19. We have the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law in 1966. We have the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court in 1998. We have the International Laboratory Accreditation Corporation in Ireland in 2020. We have the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation in 2020. We have the International Labour Organization in 2020 also. We also have the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in 2020. In conclusion, a clearer existing international instrument and their legal effect is vital to supporting international organizations in making more informed decisions as to which the instrument to develop and why it is developed. A topology of the families of the instrument can be the international organization coordinate with each other more easily or joint instruments despite their different legal and institutional contexts. This will also support national policies makers to navigate the complex international landscape and use different instruments more systematically in support of their domestic policies objectives. Thank you very much for joining the class today. See you in lesson 2. Bye.